Is there any comment or question from the sponsors? Any questions from the regulatory observers or comments?
It's regarding displays and geometry. It's regarding displays. And looking at the example of the hose degree fault with, I forgot what the other fault was, but shoreline fault. The issue that I have is it seemed to me when you went to add the waveforms together was a singular solution for a problem that can have the wave out of phase at any time over a range. And that was never, what I heard, discussed. So that is, to me, a simple, singular solution for a more complex problem. And with that being the case, I think it should be acknowledged that it should be a range instead of one solution. Have I seen that wrong?
Yeah, because we ran 32 times. So we did a single solution, but 32 times. And it's an average of that. And really, the SR assessing is consistent with random vibration theory, saying these things are going to interfere randomly in time. So the results are consistent with RVT, which is what you're saying. You need to sort of jostle the thing around. In workshop 2, or I'm not sure, we showed that where they moved the timing back and forth, you know, pushed it a second back and a second up or so forth. Doesn't fundamentally change the answer as long as you have overlap of the strong shaking part.
That's what I was getting to.
Yeah, so that's we really implemented a random vibration theory approach when we go to the SRSS.
Any other comment from the regulatory observers? Any comments from the technical observers? Oh, yeah.
So an observation from the presentation I saw from Nico. So I think I got pretty well the big picture. But one basic assumption also we have seen this afternoon was that all the models that were used for making the plots were, at that stage at least, assigned equal weight when they entered the process. So I was wondering if there shouldn't be an approach in trying to see if we can avoid an anchoring by using those plots. Because if you change if you would assign weights to these models and enter then the process, the maps would come out differently. So by seeing that in the end you will use those to make the circles and the centers, you might implicitly account for that you have some preference for example, NGA models, and would maybe locate the center closer to those ones. But by producing all the plots how they are produced at the moment, you're implicitly acknowledging that you would treat all the GMPs that are candidates with an equal weight. Maybe I'm getting that wrong, but I think that's something that should be considered somehow. If there is not an inherent somehow anchoring in these plots when you use them as they are.
Okay. Were you using those to set the space? The centering gets to the density of points. But if we take that and just say, I'm going to move my center off of that, and then I'll set my weights differently, even though the density of points may be off. What Brian was telling you is, if the GMPUs are right, you should be using the GMPUs and where they're centered and what their distribution is. But the way we're going to get at that issue is now trying to decide, you're getting to the question, where's the model centered? And fundamentally, that's what that all comes down to. Is it equal ways? Is it different ways? Is it partly considering where the data are? Is it considering what the likelihood fit is and so forth? And that's where we have to come up with a concept for, or an approach for weighting them. But what I think you don't want to take is, because there's a black point there, that's not in a higher density of points, that's not necessarily where the model is centered. And I think Nico was trying to say that. He generates these. Now we're to the point of how do you weight them, okay, as opposed to just their distribution of points would weight them based on equal weighting of the GMPs. That's not how we have to do it, and that's not how we're planning to do it. But you're right. The center changes as you change the weights of them all.
I think it's not only the center, also the map itself will change. So the representation of the realizations will change depending on the weight. So at the moment, you're assuming that your 1,000 dots there would be still there, and you would then try to fit whatever you see as the center and the range around it with respect of that plot. But if you would have entered...
That's a good, an issue we need to talk to Nico, is what is the stability of the map if, in terms of their relative positions, if we had changed their weight?
The distances change also. That's what we have seen earlier on, also in the plots of Nico within the PRP.
Okay, we'll check that. Thanks.
Okay, is there any other question from other observers?
What bothers me is there are a lot of assumptions made, sometimes for convenience and sometimes because there's not enough data. And what bothers me the most is that the consequence, I handed out paper, people probably read some of it, the consequences of a mistake are so much greater than simply an earthquake problem. Because from my point of view, we're talking about a nuclear power plant. And radiation is not just bad stuff. It's completely different and much worse. So that when you make assumptions, the problem, if you guys are wrong, if you people are wrong, is so much greater than simply a mistake.
Yes, is what I would say, and we need to capture the. I mean, we're going to push things as far as we can to say what are the range, and that's. And when you say have we made a mistake, have we not captured the range? Our goal here is to push ourselves out to be sure we're not saying here is the answer. We need to communicate the uncertainty in what that answer is, and that uncertainty is propagated further and used through the process. You know what? It could be this high. Our best answer might not be right. It may be a lot higher. What does that mean, and how do you deal with that? That process and that implication or implementation is really done in this field in the probabilistic risk analysis, where you push things through and say, what if we're wrong? What if it's a lot higher? What could go wrong? Is there a way to mitigate it? Those are the technical aspects of it, but yes, we have to capture the uncertainty, and that's really the most that I can ask out of this group. Then we need to put the burden on the next people that use it to take that uncertainty to heart and to say, all right, I understand what your limits are.
But that's the problem that the people have. When you transfer your information to the next group, as I have done in some cases with the Independent Safety Committee that comes down to Diablo Canyon, they say that these things are not their problem, or it's not their purview. It's a political thing. It's as though we, the public, in danger, are the ones that are being shuttled around and not being considered enough. I'm not saying it well, but it's a real problem for for the people who live near a nuclear power plant. We're the ones that, I mean, like in Fukushima, what would, and that's 3 years ago tomorrow. How much is that all going to cost to take care of it? Well, Japan doesn't have enough money as a government even, as a country, to really deal with all of that. I mean, the consequences of mistake are much greater than ordinary things.
Well, I just want to remind people about what the SHAC process is about. And since I chaired the SHAC committee, I think I can tell you. And Norm was there in the thick of it, although not a member of the committee. The point of this is that this is a scientific endeavor, a technical endeavor to capture the center of the body in the range. We use those words carefully, and as Norm emphasized, it's the range that is the issue under discussion in these last few minutes. And provided this scientific endeavor captures the range, whatever that means, and we have to use the word, it's a credible range, not the incredible range, then this work will have been successfully accomplished. What others do with it, that's different. But this is an attempt to capture the center of the body in the range, and we use the range of what? Well, it's the range of the community. And I think in that sense, this is the right emphasis. And what Norm said is the struggle to try to capture that range. That's the struggle. Right. Thank you.
Anything else? If that's any other comments? If not, do you want to adjourn us, Corolla? Or I will declare us adjourned until tomorrow.
Okay, so we're going to resume tomorrow at 8 o'clock, so be sure that you're here in time. And we'll have to leave this room at 4, so we really have to respect the schedule. Now, there is going to be a public Q&A session with Diablo Canyon Science hosted at the Slasher room here.